The sound of rain softly falling against the window was a gentle lullaby, soothing and rhythmic, like the world itself was slowing down for the night. The raindrops slid down the glass in intricate, winding patterns, and the distant rumble of thunder rolled through the sky, low and comforting. It was the kind of night that called for warmth and comfort, for curling up beneath a soft blanket and letting the quiet calm of the rain settle into your bones. Inside, the warm glow of a single lamp filled the room, casting soft, golden light across the wooden floors and cozy furniture. The air was thick with the scent of fresh tea, the steam rising from a cup resting on the table. The atmosphere was one of pure comfort, the perfect setting for unwinding after a long day. Breathing deeply, the lady sat by the window, her gaze lingering on the rain-soaked streets below. She allowed herself to take in the sounds, the steady patter of rain, the occasional gust of wind, and the soft hum of the city beyond. The world outside seemed distant, quiet, as though it too had decided to pause for a moment. As the rain continued to fall, her mind began to drift, her thoughts slowing down with each deep breath. The warmth of the room, the peacefulness of the rain, it all created a sense of serenity, a space where she could finally let go of the worries that had been weighing on her. The lady lived in a small apartment in a rainy city where the weather often mirrored her internal state, gray, heavy, and unpredictable. She had always liked the rain, finding comfort in its consistency, but in recent months it had begun to feel like a reflection of something deeper, something she couldn't quite shake. She had grown accustomed to the quietness of her life, to the solitary routine that filled her days. The hustle and bustle of the city often felt distant, as if she were living in a different rhythm than everyone else. Her mornings began with the same routine, a quiet breakfast, a walk through the misty streets, and then the long hours of work. Evenings were much the same, a quiet dinner, perhaps a book, and then she would sit by the window, listening to the rain. But despite the peace she had created in her life, there was a loneliness she couldn't quite name, a feeling that something was missing. She had always been independent, had always taken pride in her ability to stand on her own. But lately, she found herself wishing for something more, though she wasn't sure what that more was. It was on one such rainy evening, as she walked through the dimly lit streets after a long day, that something unexpected happened. As the rain fell steadily, she noticed a small figure huddled under a narrow awning near a cafe. It was a dog, small, scruffy, and soaked to the bone, its fur matted from the rain. The dog lifted its head as she approached, its eyes meeting hers with a mix of hope and fear. She stopped, her heart tugging at the sight of the drenched animal. It didn't move, just watched her cautiously, as if waiting to see what she would do. Without really thinking, she knelt down beside the dog, holding out her hand gently. The dog sniffed her fingers, hesitating for a moment before taking a small, tentative step forward. She didn't know what came over her in that moment, but as she sat there in the rain with the dog, she felt an undeniable connection. The dog seemed lost, alone, much like she had felt for so long. Without a second thought, she removed her scarf and gently wrapped it around the dog's shivering body. The rain continued to fall around them, but in that moment, she felt as though the world had narrowed to just the two of them. "Come on," she whispered, her voice soft and gentle. "Let's get you out of the rain." The dog looked up at her, as if understanding her words, and stood, shaking off the rain as best it could. She walked slowly, allowing the dog to follow her, and together they made their way back to her apartment. Inside, the warmth of the room enveloped them both, and she quickly found an old towel to dry the dog off. The dog looked up at her with wide, grateful eyes, and as she knelt down to dry its fur, she felt something inside her soften. She hadn't realized how much she had needed this, someone or something to care for, to share her space with. That night, after making sure the dog was warm and fed, she sat by the window once again, but this time she wasn't alone. The dog curled up at her feet, its breathing slow and steady, matching the rhythm of the rain outside. As she watched the dog sleep, she felt a deep sense of peace settle over her, as if, for the first time in a long time, she wasn't just watching life pass by, she was part of it. In the days that followed, the dog became a constant presence in her life. She named him Charlie, a simple name for a dog that had brought so much warmth into her world. Charlie was small, with scruffy fur that never seemed to sit quite right, but his eyes were full of life, full of love. Every morning, they would walk together through the rainy streets, Charlie trotting happily at her side, his tail wagging with every step. The once lonely walks had become something she looked forward to, a time of connection and joy. Charlie's enthusiasm for the world was infectious, and she found herself smiling more, laughing at his antics as he chased after falling leaves or splashed through puddles. Her apartment, once quiet and still, now felt alive with Charlie's presence. He would follow her from room to room, always curious, always wanting to be near her. At night, he would curl up at the foot of her bed, his small body a comforting weight against her legs. The sound of the rain, once a reminder of her solitude, now felt like the background to a new chapter in her life, one filled with warmth and companionship. As the weeks went by, she began to notice a shift within herself. The heaviness that had once lingered over her, like the constant gray clouds of the city, began to lift. It wasn't that her life had changed drastically. She was still the same person, with the same routine. But with Charlie by her side, everything felt different. There was a lightness to her days, a sense of purpose that hadn't been there before. The internal struggles she had faced, the loneliness, the sense that something was missing, began to fade. Charlie had given her a reason to look forward to each day, a reminder that even the smallest moments could be filled with joy. She found herself more present, more aware of the beauty in her everyday life. There were still rainy days, of course, plenty of them, but now, instead of feeling weighed down by the gray skies, she embraced the rain. She and Charlie would venture out into the drizzle, exploring new streets, discovering hidden parks, and simply enjoying the fresh, cool air. They would return home soaked but happy, the warmth of the apartment and a cup of tea waiting to welcome them back. One evening, as she sat by the window, Charlie curled up in her lap. She realized how much her life had changed since that rainy night when she had found him. The rain was falling steadily outside, but it no longer felt lonely. It felt peaceful, like a soft rhythm that had become part of her life. Charlie, now fast asleep, had become her constant companion, her little reminder that life, even in its quietest moments, could be full of love and connection. She reflected on how much her life had shifted, not because of grand events or major changes, but because of the simple act of opening her heart to this small, scruffy dog. Charlie had given her something she hadn't even known she needed, a sense of belonging, of unconditional love. He had become her friend, her family. As the rain continued to fall, she stroked Charlie's fur gently, her mind at peace. She had found something beautiful in the simplicity of their routine, in the quiet companionship they shared. The once empty apartment was now filled with warmth and love, and for the first time in a long time, she felt completely at ease. There was still the occasional bad day, moments when the clouds seemed a little heavier, when the world felt overwhelming. But now, with Charlie by her side, those moments felt more manageable, more bearable. He was always there to remind her that she wasn't alone, that there was joy to be found even in the rainiest of days. And so, life continued, quiet, steady, and full of small moments of happiness. The rain became a part of her rhythm, the backdrop to a life that was no longer defined by solitude, but by the love she had found in an unexpected place. As the years passed, the lady and her dog grew inseparable. They became a familiar sight in the neighborhood, Charlie trotting happily at her side, always eager for their next adventure. The rainy city, once a reflection of her internal struggles, had become a place of comfort, a place where she had found peace and fulfillment. Looking back, she realized how much Charlie had changed her life. He had taught her the beauty of living in the moment, of appreciating the small joys that came with each day. Whether it was a quiet walk in the rain, a lazy afternoon spent curled up together, or simply the knowledge that she was never alone, Charlie had filled her life with love. Now, as she sat by the window, watching the rain fall outside, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had found her way through the gray clouds, and she knew that no matter what, she would always have Charlie by her side. The rain continued its soft, rhythmic patter against the window, lulling her into a state of deep relaxation. Charlie, now older but still full of love, rested peacefully at her feet. Together, they listened to the rain, content in the quiet warmth of their shared life. And as she drifted off to sleep, the lady knew that no matter how many rainy days lay ahead, she would never face them alone. Charlie had given her the greatest gift, a life filled with love, companionship, and the quiet joy of knowing that even in the rain, there was always warmth and light waiting to be found. Good night and sweet dreams.